man who disappeared from a locked room. Welcome to the quiet corners of history. Before we begin our journey into the shadows of the past, please consider subscribing to our series for more documented accounts of the unexplained. Tonight, we travel back to the winter of 1809. The air is cold, the continent is at war, and a British envoy is about to step into a void from which he will never return. This is the case of Benjamin Bathurst. The Napoleonic Wars had turned Europe into a chessboard of shifting alliances and sudden betrayals. Benjamin, a high-ranking diplomat, was returning from the Austrian court with urgent dispatches for London. He traveled under the pseudonym Baron de Koch, aware that French agents were watching every road, every port, and every inn across the German states. Accompanying him was his trusted valet, a man named Krause. Together, they navigated the treacherous route toward the coast. Benjamin was gripped by a growing paranoia. He was convinced he was being followed. He barely slept, his eyes constantly scanning the tree lines for the blue uniforms of the French cavalry. On the evening of November 25th, their carriage rattled into the small town of Perleberg. They stopped at the White Swan Inn to rest and change horses. The innkeeper, a man named Schmidt, noted the nervous energy of the traveler. Benjamin requested to stay in the carriage while the horses were prepared, but eventually he stepped inside the inn to warm himself. Around 9 o'clock, the horses were ready. The night was pitch black and biting. Benjamin told Krause he would walk to the front of the carriage to check the harness. He stepped away from the pool of light cast by the inn's doorway and vanished into the gloom of the courtyard. He was only a few feet away from his companions. Minutes passed. Krause called out for his master, but there was no reply. He walked to the front of the carriage, expecting to find Benjamin checking the leather straps, but the space was empty. The valet hurried back to the inn to find Schmidt, his voice trembling as he explained that the diplomat had simply vanished into the thin, cold air. A local military officer, Captain von Klitzing, was summoned to lead the investigation. He took the matter seriously, fearing a diplomatic incident. The town was sealed, and every room in the White Swan was searched. They found Benjamin's heavy fur coat still lying on a chair inside the inn, but of the man himself there was not a single footprint in the frost. Theories began to circulate through the whispered corridors of Perleberg. Some believed French scouts had snatched him in a daring, silent abduction to seize his secret papers. Others whispered of a more common crime, that a local had murdered him for the gold sewn into his clothing and hidden the body in the dense woods surrounding the town. Years later, Benjamin's wife, Phillida, traveled to Germany herself, desperate for closure. She met with officials and searched the records, but the trail had gone cold. In 1852, a skeleton was found beneath the threshold of a house in Perleberg, but it could never be definitively linked to the missing Englishman. The mystery remained a locked door with no key. Benjamin Bathurst's disappearance remains one of history's most baffling puzzles. He did not vanish into another world, but into the violent, chaotic machinery of the Napoleonic era. We are left only with the image of a man stepping into the dark, a silent reminder that sometimes history does not give up its secrets. Thank you for listening to this Real Mystery Stories production.